Today I'm going to be showing you a quick guide on how to farm giant seaweed. Giant seaweed is very important to get your first amulet of glory, which you can get at 80 crafting, which is boostable with a stew. You also need it to be able to craft any type of onyx jewelry or seaweed jewelry, which is very important for late game ironman. It's very important to start off farming the giant seaweed as early as you possibly can, as it of course takes some time to farm the giant seaweed. The requirements for farming giant seaweed is only 20 free farming, so it's something you can do very early on an Ironman. Another requirement is access to Fossil Island, which requires you to have completed Bon Voyage, which requires you to have 100 kudos, which you get from different quests and so on. You also need to have completed the dig site. These are very low requirements for something that is very important. As for requirements in terms of items or recommended items, you need seaweed spores, which I will show you how to get very soon. Nummulites is useful as you can pay the farmer to protect your crops, so the giant seaweed most definitely won't die. There's a very low chance for it to die when you're using ultra compost. You can also use normal compost and super compost. It increases the yield and the possibility of it dying. Nummulites makes the risk of dying 0. A recommended item is the dig site pendant, which you can get from cleaning artifacts in the Museum of Varrock. It's a very nice teleport to the Fossil Island. A fishbowl helmet and diving apparatus you might think you would need underwater, but it's actually not needed. It's only nice to have, as you will be able to stay underwater for a long time when collecting the seaweed spores. A magic secretor is not needed as it actually does not increase the yield of seaweed. I believe this is the only patch in RuneScape which it does not increase the yield of, which is confirmed by Mud Ash. Giant seaweed is something that was introduced in the past few years of old school RuneScape to create molten glass. Before you were able to create molten glass by the use of normal seaweed and 1 bucket of sand. You would be able to make 1 molten glass. Now with giant seaweed, you need 1 giant seaweed and 6 buckets of sand per giant seaweed to create molten glass. Molten glass will gain you some XP whenever you make it, and it will gain more XP when you blow it with a glass blowing pipe. I have the requirement to make the light orb, but these different alternatives will also be very useful for the lower levels. 1 Dorgeshan light orb would gain you 70 crafting XP. Additionally, you will gain 10 XP for every molten glass you will be making. If you're wondering how to gather the buckets of sand that you will be needing for your crafting grind with the giant seaweed, I have also made a video on this, which I will be linking at the top of the video right here, and you can just click it and it will be easy and informative as well. The easiest way of getting to a seaweed patch in old school RuneScape is to be using your dig site pendant, which is just a ruby necklace enchanted. You will choose the dig site teleport, and you will get over to the ship here, which you encounter in the Bon Voyage quest. You'll just click quick travel with this rowboat right here to the north of the island, which will get you up here. Then you will take another rowboat and you will row out to the sea. This little island is placed with a bank chest, which you can use whenever you need something, and you will be able to dive with the rowboat right here to get down to the seaweed patch. Diving apparatus and the fishbowl helmet will help you breathe underwater. It is not needed though. Oh, pets are not allowed down here. just as a quickly reminder. So now you know that you need to bank your pet because it can neither be in your inventory or on the ground. Dive anyway. It will give you a warning message, but it is not needed. It will show your oxygen level right here. As you see, it depletes very fast if you're not wearing any fishbowl helmet or diving apparatus. If you're wearing these items, it will not drain at all and will constantly stay at oxygen level 100%. The easiest way of obtaining the seaweed spores is just waiting down here. You can be fletching, you can be elking, you can do any sort of thing down here while you're waiting for the seaweed spores to just randomly pop out in this area. Usually I would like to stand here, as they can spawn way over here to the east of me and to the west, and just in this general area. Usually you would see some seaweed spores spawn whenever you're picking your giant seaweed from the patch right here. Usually it's very easy, you just click on the patch and you will get some giant seaweed. As well as gathering the seaweed spores whenever they spawn around the seaweed patches, you can also gather them from doing the underwater agility or from killing lobstrosities, in which you can only kill them using a brine saber, a merfolk trident, a trident of the seas, or a trident of the swamp. I found that to be very tedious and a waste, as I don't really have any great weapons to kill them. You can also kill them with magic secateurs, but as you see, they don't really have the greatest of bonuses down here. Whenever I usually gather the seaweed spores by just waiting here for them to spawn. You will actually not need very many seaweed spores to gather a big amount like this. You will of course also need your standard farming gear, which is a farming rake, seed dipper and a spade. If you notice that your seaweed is deceased, you will be able to use a plant cure on them and they will recover to the state that they were in previously. You just, as with all other patches in RuneScape, you'll just have to plant your seed, use some compost, and you will be able to pay for the patches with 200 Nummulite. I usually don't do this as they usually don't die very often, but I'm going to be doing it just to show it. And as you see, another seaweed spore just spawned. It is able to spawn 1 to 3 seaweed spores at a time, in which I believe that a minimum of 3 giant seaweed can be collected per patch. I have never in my entire life have it happen to me that I would only be able to pick 3 giant seaweed. As you can see, you usually get a lot more than that. It is of course dependent on someone's farming level and if using super or ultra compost. The average is about 15 to 32 giant seaweed per patch, dependent on your farming level and your choice of compost. If you're wondering how to make ultra compost, I've also made another video showing how to gather ultra compost as an Ironman. I'll be linking that video at the top of the screen on the video, and if you don't know how to make ultra compost, please click on the video and you will be entertained or informed. And for the second patch, you just do as you did with the first patch. You can see the first patch is already growing. I've just planted the seed on this one and I'm going to be using some ultra compost on it. I sadly don't have enough Nummulite to protect this one because it's very tedious to get on an Ironman, as it is not purchasable in any way, shape or form. It is for normal accounts, as well as the seaweed spores are purchasable on a normal account and the giant seaweed is as well. It is also kind of a way to make money by doing some farming, and it is the greatest way of achieving the farming pet, as it gives the best rates from here, as you're very often collecting very many seaweed per patch. You can also very easily incorporate your farming of seaweed with your birdhouse runs, as birdhouses takes about 50 minutes to complete, whereas the seaweed takes about 40 minutes. So every 50 minutes you can just do a birdhouse run and run straight down here, as the birdhouses are also located on the fossil island. I've also made a video on this, which I will be linking on this video as well. If you're wondering how to calculate how many molten glass you will need for a level, in general you will get about 1.5 molten glass per bucket of sand used. So if you use 6 buckets of sand per 1 giant seaweed, you will be getting about 9 molten glass per giant seaweed in general. So that is just for some easy calculations for your crafting grinds, and I wish you the best of luck